on to the second part, right? I'm just waiting for the timing to jump in. All right. So we would like to make the floor open, and for anyone who wants to share your experiences and opinions, disagreements, will be welcome to, especially Vincent in that case, right? So I think it's good to, if you just to raise your hand in Zoom, so that easy to appoint who will be the next speaker, right?
So while waiting, can I just suggest to address the one opinion that we received through the chat from, I truly apologize that I might be wrong with the pronunciation, but Guko Bosker, talking that he does not agree with that opinion. I guess it's my opinion that low context can be very different and misunderstandings are seen among different countries, like Western Europe. And I need your help, Vincent, to address a little bit part of the Western European side of things, because I've never been there, but I may be wrong, but I think Gyuko and me are in the same page, if I'm not wrong, even though he does not agree with my opinion. But Vincent, when you see this, if you're able to come up on the stage, that'll be great. But if not, thank you. Can you elaborate a little bit about your statement here? Thank you.
Yeah, I can. So Toyo, Kei, and especially Vincent, thank you for the presentation so far. In previous times, I've been working with Vincent. Yeah. So while listening to you, I came to think of a couple of examples that I know where Germans and French people, or even German and Dutch, or Dutch and English, actually, and they're all pretty much low context countries, but they completely misunderstood each other in their communications.
Okay.
So it's probably too easy to say, like, if you're high context, it's easy to adopt low context, because if even for a low context country like Germany or the Netherlands, where we are, we tend to understand, or I think that we tend to understand people quite easily, we make huge mistakes in that perspective.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you get your point. I get your point, and I agree that it's not necessarily correct to say that there's several low context-based countries listed there, maybe 2 or 3, and we should see all of them are easily communicating, easy to understand each other. That cannot be the case. That's what you're saying, right? And I fully agree with you. I think that's around like a comparison between different low context countries and cultures, while my previous statement is a simple comparison between high versus low, while I guess your point is low versus low, which fully agree with you.
Yeah, and it's even high versus low, I would say.
Okay.
It's similar. And
so
I really liked the remark from Fritz on geography. Maybe it's not so much the geography, but it's the group of people you're in. I've been working for a Japanese company for 16, 17 years now.
Wow.
And when I'm working in a European environment with a lot of European colleagues, it's a low context conversation. But I also lived in Tokyo for 3 years and worked in a department where I was virtually the only one that was non-Japanese. And I just had to adopt on high context conversations. It's not, obviously, if they're aware of you being there, clearly aware, they might actually go down a little bit on their high context, but you will have to move up as well.
Move up, yeah.
So, if I just can throw something in here, the high and low context cultures is, I think, something which has to be mentioned with all of these dimensions is that they are obviously not absolute. General, all cultures, and we don't want to disregard culture in a way that we classify them in high and low. There are differences in communication, obviously, and one of the reasons is that these dimensions and these rankings, in a way, they can be applied to different points of life as well. So you could have when you're with your family. So let me give an example. While we are very direct in German things, right? I don't like something, I will tell it. Say I disagree. But if you're with your wife and she asks me, how do you like this dress? Or with your girlfriend, maybe I really rely on higher context. So, these are things to consider, and the differences in culture are there. And but I think the one of the most important things is that they're recognized. If people don't know about that they are, and they expect you to interact very easily, it's always difficult. But even if you're aware, and probably you can agree on that, it's probably more difficult for low context to go into high context than going to a different low context culture, accepting and expecting that that there are differences in communication. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay,
I fully agree. Yeah.
Great. That's perfect. There's a question in the chat, which is here from the last point I made. I quickly want to read it out before we go to the next speaking point. I do not wish to make this a political discussion, but I wonder if the we-ness of Singapore scene today is also influenced by society's bond forged by Lee Kuan Yew as the founding father. I'm interested to see how we involves. Oh, okay, this is just a comment here. Actually, yeah, a comment. Sorry for that. So I think the next person to raise their hand was Daniel, right?
Yep. Daniel, go ahead.
Hi. Thanks, Vincent. Yeah, my question is really around the measures that we talked about. I'm just curious, like, in your opinion and expertise, do these measures change over time? And how fluid are these, cultural measures, whether it's at a societal level or maybe even down to the corporate and individual level? Is it easy? Does it change quickly over time?
To be completely honest, I'm not sure how quick they change, but just these different levels, the example I just gave probably made it clear there are differences regarding which aspects of life you look at. So for example, law and enforcement of laws would be a different example here. The change of cultures of these dimensions and the ranking is a very interesting point to me as well. And if I would have infinite time and resources, this may be something I would even like to research, because this is a good point you rose, because the original research these dimensions are based on was made in the end of the 80s. So I think like 87 or something it was. They were updated, but still I would assume that with the feminism rising up in a way, that the empowerment of women, a lot of things changed. I definitely see a shift with younger Japanese to have a more focus on private life than work, and all these things, they definitely shift these dimensions, and they may actually be quite incorrect or imprecise in a way.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing that, not only changing, but it also means that there's always exception, right? Because I guess both Toyo and myself might not really fit into this typical Japanese for the form of the position here. A good example is like, when Yuko said, I disagree with my opinion, I was really excited. I was happy to hear that, right? Because I love confrontational discussion in this space. But in the typical Japanese people, if they see like somebody saying, I don't agree with you in the public place, they feel like they were threatened, right? So I think I'm really the exceptional things in that way. So yeah, it really depends on the person. So it's not easy, but I think this is just a simplified chart to show the typical character of each of the countries. But always changes, and always, I'm also not really sure how quickly it change, but people can change, people can adopt, and there's an exception as well. This is my opinion as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point, Kay. Do you find that, given your experience working in American firms or multinational, or working in multinational companies, that your own personality has shifted over time to kind of fit with the I guess the overall company culture?
Yeah, definitely. Indeed, in my current company in Tokyo office, nobody see me as Japanese guy. This is the truth.
when we first met, we just met in context of this event. I even told you, you seem more not American, but you seem like you have an American background somewhere. Yeah, these shifts in personality, they are definitely there, and they are also highly recognized in cultural research. And I think one of the most important here is like the goal to become a multicultural person would actually be to know the differences in culture and to navigate them, and how to how to detect these differences. So this is very important. And in my opinion, one of the most important thing is that you are aware of cultural differences. That maybe if you go abroad, you do some research a little bit just to know what to look out for, and then you will pick it up. So you can sense it in a way, right? Pick up on the high context, for example.
Yeah, individual aspects, and this this culture difference is based on the countries, like all about the combination, right? And also within this scale, like high context, low context, and power distance, everything is a combination, right? That makes it more complicated. And some people say that, oh, because individual or personality prevail for these culture. Well, that could be, yeah, but it's really that's really easy conclusion to say, right? But the awareness is very important. So at least whether you believe 100% or not, but it makes sense to understand this is the fundamental, maybe the tendency of the country to have this culture. So that's it's good to learn this. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So we can move on to John.
Hi, everyone. So fantastic discussion. Very, very interesting so far. One thing I just wanted to, it's not really a question, but just kind of, getting involved in the chat that's going on is this, I think we want to understand, and maybe this has already been said, that, these scales aren't binary. So it doesn't necessarily mean that countries that are all low culture are exactly the same. It's in the sense of this is a sliding scale. So for the example of, say, France and Germany, in comparison, you need to compare them into each other. So to Germany, France is a higher context culture than German culture. So it's not as if just two countries that are on the low end of the scale are automatically going to get along. I'm from Canada myself, and we're on the lower end of the scale. And for example, if we're interacting with Germans or Dutch, if it comes to feedback, we'd be extremely offended, I think, by the directness of how the feedback comes up, because we're, in comparison, Canadian culture are a bit higher on the scale in comparison to Germany and the Netherlands, for example. And also just, the idea that was mentioned in the chat as well, that personality, obviously everyone's different, but I think that culture really does play a massive difference, if you're what's considered acceptable. So like I said in the chat, someone who's a person who's low context, a Japanese person is going to be considered strange and might be a bit of an outcast in their own country, and they get along better, somewhere else. So yeah,
definitely.
That's,
if I may add, because of the feedback, for example, Germans are actually considered rude within Europe already. So if you look around in Europe, maybe with the Netherlands, it's not that extreme yet. But if you would ask Italians, French, or Spanish people, or maybe even Scandinavian countries, they may tell you that Germans are rude.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the image that we don't laugh, right? I hope. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Definitely. Also, I definitely agree with the individual in this context. There are definitely different preferences, but so for example, when I am in Japan, I obviously are still communicating extremely direct, and to be honest, I sometimes do it consciously. I consciously point things out because it's not always, in my opinion, it's not always beneficial to stay in that high context. Just to give an example, when I was doing an exchange in Japan, and we were just having a group work, low stakes, low grading, we were giving a topic, and we had different aspects to discuss on the topic and hold a presentation. And obviously, in these kind of scenarios, everyone has a preference, right? You have a topic you want to do more than the others, at least. And what happened is that no one spoke out for themselves. They always said, "Oh, I can do this topic." It's not the topic they wanted to do, but they assumed, all right, this topic is a topic the other people might do as well, because for me it's interesting, which is not always true. Other people might like other topics, but because he said or she said, "I want to do this topic," the other people say, "Okay, I will do the other topic," even though maybe they wanted to do that topic. And I talked to someone, and this apparently also in the companies always often results in these situations that no one does what they want to do, actually, even though they would maybe come to a perfect consensus. So I try sometimes to actively break these situations up, play with a lower context here, and address these things. So it's not only negatively seen that we have these differences, right? Also, what I heard a lot in the interviews I had in my thesis is that a lot of people coming back from Japan, they definitely said, all right, maybe Goiko, you can maybe you can back this up. They said, all right, this may be a problem when you come back to Japan. Your communication became so indirect, you're not accepted by the Europeans anymore. However, what was often mentioned is that they see the benefit of indirect communication, getting a consensus before you push into a meeting, talking to the people, what do they want, and incorporating it into an approach. So while I play with indirect communication in Europe, the other way around, it can be definitely used as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So that's all I wanted to say. But yes, these are all interesting. I'm also getting involved in the chat as well too. Just another point I mentioned that as you've already said, that these cultural scales don't just apply to nationalities, but they apply to professions and different subcultures as well. And sometimes even those can transcend national boundaries, even people who are from the same profession or same subculture. So,
yeah, John, I think that's a great point. Yeah, because indeed, if I were asked, I might say my personality at work and my personality in the private time might differ a little bit when it comes to higher, lower context type of things as well. Just because I'm, working with 14 different countries in my working environment, while in my private time, obviously, I live in Tokyo. So if I behave like a low context guy all the time, I maybe feel like, or feel like me seen as a little bit strange person, right? So, yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, that reminds me one thing. It depends on what language you are speaking. When you are speaking Japanese, high context. When you're speaking in English, it's more like low context. That almost like changing your personality as well. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking in different languages. Yeah.
I feel like it's almost impossible to speak low context Japanese.
I can, I think.
Possible, but it just
probably my Japanese is super low context, but for me, compared to German, when I try to translate one-to-one from German to Japanese with my somewhat limited Japanese, at least, for me it's very difficult to be low context there.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Maybe move on.
Yeah, sure. Fritz.
Okay. Hello again. My impression is an interesting discussion, but it's very male-dominated until now. My question is low context, high context, and behavior of female and male persons in Asia and in Europe. I would like to hear some voices from the ladies here in the meeting. How do you feel about it? How are you treated? Does it is it a point or what is it?
Maybe to fill this gap, please go ahead, interrupt me. Any ladies, if you feel like you want to speak up here.
Somebody put on a video.
So yeah, while waiting then, let me just quickly share my experience, because I belong to a marketing organization, which we have lots of ladies working, really hard, really tough ladies, really smart ladies as well. And I feel there's no difference, at least when it comes to the working environment. if they are lower or higher context in a way, because they're professional and they just carry on. So the communication style actually, in my experience at least, really don't see that much of the difference in terms of the gender here. Maybe this is not what you're looking for, Rich, but just to share my experience. Yeah. Did anybody raise their hands?
Some lady turned their camera on. I'm not sure if she wants
I
to
realized
speak up.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't mention your name, but if you want to speak up, please feel free to mute. Okay, never mind.
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah, never mind.
All right. I just want to add that this point that in context of these scales and these rankings, that like I said, I only covered 3 out of 6 dimensions here, right? There are others. There is a long-term orientation. There is masculinity and femininity, which is a little bit of a misleading name, but it incorporates also the position of females and males in the culture. And there was another one I don't remember right now. Sorry for that. I want to pick up on the male-female here, and this is, like I said, this is probably one of the points, which is very indulgent versus restraint. Exactly. Thank you, Ahana. I just slipped my mind right now. So these are probably the dimensions which are mostly shifting at the moment with, and they are, so the femininity and masculinity, right? They not only incorporate the position of man and woman in a culture, they also incorporate, for example, the so-called work-life balance. I don't like that term. I use life domain balance, because the work-life balance indicates that work is not part of life. Just a note here. So I think this is shifting a lot, and actually Japan is, in these rankings, one, if not the highest ranking masculine country in the world, which is partially due to their determination to work, but also because Japan is still very man-dominated. Maybe someone wants to pick up on that point. Contradict or approve, feel free. How is it in Germany? Maybe someone is interested. In Germany, I still feel it's a bit man-dominated, but not. This is definitely something changed. Definitely also the perception changed since Angela Merkel became chancellor. We have a woman in power since 16 years. It's more still the pay gap, maybe discrimination regarding jobs. So.
Okay, it's been 1 hour already, and if you have anyone who wants to share experiences or opinion, please raise your hand. And if not, Vincent, I have a question. Let's make it a very easy topic rather than difficult one. What do you think?
Great.
What's the similarity between Germany and Japan? How do you describe simply, and differences?
I think the maybe I start with the main difference, because I think it's the differences between Japan and Germany are actually quite small in some ways. I think the main difference here is definitely the communication, which is very reluctant on this high-low context culture. We talk about this a lot because this is one of the most important topics. Beside that, there are some cultural differences which play in it here and there, but if you are aware, and definitely are aware if you're in Japan, that the culture is different, I think Japanese and Germans come along very, very well. We have the similar belief that, so for example, if you have a sign, do not do something, at least to some degree, everyone will follow it. Maybe Japanese more than Germans, I don't know. But if we agree on a time, we will try to arrive on time. We discussed this earlier as well, that Kay said, oh, you are so early. And I said, German punctuality is 5 minutes early. That'd be a great time. Things like that. I have many Japanese friends, and I get along with Japanese very well. I actually have 3 Japanese I'm living with right now. My girlfriend is Japanese. I love Japan. I just wouldn't want to work there necessarily. But maybe it changes. No, I'm just kidding. I would also work in Japan.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Yeah. Yeah, since already 1 hour passed, so let me just wrap up. And but before doing that, Kay, do you wanna have something to say?
Yeah, I think this is really great topic, and I absolutely agree with Vincent in terms of the higher context, lower context. There's lots of sharing between Germany and Japan, and also when it comes to the differences, I think the point of the avoidance of the confrontational things, I think that's a big difference to me, at least, because I just wanted to quickly share one of my experience with somebody that I work really close with in my current company, who is a Norwegian guy who used to live in Germany for 10 years. And he actually, really loved a really confrontational discussion in the public, like in front of the 50 employee. It's internal, but still 50 people, right? And if it's higher context people, and if we're all talking in Japanese mode, I think people will never have a confrontational, opposite type of opinion to getting into this really tough discussion. But he really loved to do that. So at the beginning, I feel like I was offended and threatened by this colleague, but he really loves him. He really loves me, and how he really loved to work with me, and he was really friendly, confronting me kind of a situation. So I think that's one of the things that we really need to understand. It's not about attacking somebody. It's not about the personal attack. It's but just a fight between the ideas, nothing to do with the personality, right? Which is really difficult thing for the higher context society based people to understand, to be honest. So I think this, as far as we overcome that kind of things, I think we can be even better friends across the entire world. That's my just last one word that I just wanted to share with everybody here. And again, after this event, I would love to be connected with everybody in this room. Thank you. So over to you.
That's a very nice summary. A very nice summary. Vincent, almost like you talk about some, based on like my question, but you have something to wrap up.
Yeah, maybe quickly before we finish, to follow up on Kay, give some context why we love to do that. We will probably hear Germans voice an opinion about basically everything. Doesn't matter what you talk about, we will have an opinion. And a belief behind that for you to understand is that if we talk about concerns, there may be the possibility to improve, right? If there are flaws, we talk about them, either we sort them out or we realize that they're not real flaws. Just to that point, so you can understand why we love to discuss. In general, I think as a wrapping up point, there are still some comments in the chat. Thank you for that. We could probably talk about this for hours and hours coming, and maybe we will repeat this kind of event. Wrapping up, I would say that the most important thing, I mentioned that before, is if you go to different cultures, be aware that cultures are different. Be aware, be open-minded. Don't disagree like saying, they communicate in a different way, they're all rude. Don't have these thoughts. Don't put everyone into one pot. Go open-minded. Expect differences. Try to sort them out in a way. Maybe not even with the other person in conflict, but for yourself, try to understand where they're coming from. Try to separate what is actually rude, because there definitely are some rude people, and what is just culture. And I think if everyone would do that, we would get along very well. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, since both of you summarized very well, so I don't have much things to say, but a little bit different angle. So living in Singapore, and sometimes people ask me about like how frequently are you eating sushi? Are you eating sushi every day, right? I don't feel any strange feeling if I ask that question, but this is just an example, right? And easy to understand. But some people may feel it's offended, right? I'm not talking about sushi, right? Just forget about sushi example. But if you get some stereotype comments, if you receive it, some people may feel it's offended. Wow, what are you talking about, right? So for the speaker's perspective, the counterparty's perspective, it's quite important to understand the culture background of the counterparty to avoid that kind of unnecessary, making them feel unnecessary feeling. Right? So that's the reason why I'm really interested in the culture awareness. Yeah. So this is a little bit different angles. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone taking this time to join this online events. And this is actually my first time to organize this. Yeah. So I'm planning to have another one, and haven't decided any timeline yet, but definitely, yeah, I will post it, the events notice in future. Yeah. Thank you very much again. And thank you very much, Vincent and Kay, as a speaker, and also the participants. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
And good
hosting
night.
us, and
Bye.
Have a good day.
thank you everyone
Bye.
for participating.
Bye-bye.
Please get in touch with us if you have any more questions.
Yeah,
Even-
and connected through LinkedIn.
Yeah. Event
Yeah,
chat
exactly.
event chat is available. It's not disappeared, so you can communicate, and it will be a great chance to meet people from all over the world. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Let me close this call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.